Hello, everybody.
Wow.
Wave your hands.
Hello, hello.
Good to see you. So how about you type into the chat where you're dialing in from, because I think we're a very international group today. So we can see who's here, who's in the room. And yeah, so if you're just joining, just dial into, so we've Oxford, with Berlin, with Istanbul, with Cologne, with California, USA, Zurich, Berlin, Ibiza, St. Albans, Scotland, Seattle, wow, you're an early bird, Wales, Ravenna, London, Munich, Cannes, France, Streudorf, near to Nuremberg, Kentucky, USA. Oh, what a lovely group. So welcome everybody. Chicago, Lake Constance, Cape Town, South Africa. Fantastic. Yes, okay. So the group is growing. We have officially 170 people registered, and of course not everybody's going to show up, but we just want to give them a few minutes to get themselves sorted and join the call. And yes, it's wonderful to see you. You can already do a little hand stretching exercise and see if you can touch the person next to you and shake hands. Or the person below you. I'm scratching Matt Cooper's head right now. Hi, Matt. Yeah, that works. You can poke.
Hello, Joshua.
Sorry, what? Did somebody say something?
Sorry, Nadia. I was saying hello to Peter and Joshua, and I'm looking for other friends in the chat.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Alessandro.
Hi. Hi, Alessandro.
Hello.
Hey, it's so nice to see so many lovely faces that I know and some faces that I've never seen before. So great to have you.
Ginny.
Yes, Ginny's also here.
Yes, hello.
Enjoying. Exactly, great. Okay, so I think we're slowly filling up the room here. We are recording the call. I hope you saw that in my little welcome email today. So of course in the breakout sessions, which we will have later, they will not be a recording. So the recording is really just for the for the official session. And Mark, just in case you didn't do that already, make sure that we have it on speaker view for the recording, because I recently was in a session where we didn't do that, and then the speaker was in this tiny panel, which was a bit annoying for
we should be recording both sessions, speaker
Great.
and gallery.
Fantastic. Okay, so I would say I get started. So for everybody who doesn't know me, my name is Nadia, or Nadjeschda Taranczewski, and I'm the host for today, I should say. I'm also the founder and we are an online-based coaching company that offers scalable culture transformation to organizations, and we basically have the intentions to help them reinvent themselves as what we call conscious tribes. And that means as thriving communities where every member of the organization invests in inner work, sees the bigger picture, invests in deep relationships, and cultivates conscious rituals. So today it is my utmost pleasure to have two very special people in this call with me. Rivka Halberstadt, who will guide us through a little energizer in a moment, and of course Peter Koenig. And just in terms of the agenda, what we're going to do is after the energizer with with Rivka, I will then engage in a deeper conversation about money with Peter, upon which all of you will be put into smaller breakout sessions with two or three other people. along with a set of questions that you can discuss with each other for about 20 minutes. And then we'll be brought back into the big room. We'll have a chance to ask questions to Peter, and just, really in German, we say you can ask a hole into him. So all the questions we can fit into 20 minutes, you'll be able to ask. Then we have some announcements about what is going to happen moving forward. And and that will be it basically. So so great to have you here. And I will hand over to Rivka, and just a few words about Rivka. So Rivka is an amazing somatic coach, and she has actually been my coach for, I think, more than 10 years now. So I've gone a long way and come a long way with Rivka. And I asked her today, prior to her session next week, about money and the body, which you will also get a link to if you haven't received the link already. So Rivka will guide us into a quick energizer just to make sure that we're landing fully in our physical beingness for this call. So Rivka, over to you.
Hi everyone. You can stand up. Just please stand up. Okay. And if you can move a bit the screen up. Okay, and we are just starting directly with the exercise. So the first movement, we are taking the shoulders up, toward the ears, and down. Taking the shoulders up and down. When you take your shoulders up, you breathe in. And when you take them down, you breathe out, you exhale. So inhale and exhale. The second part of the movement, you go up on your toes and you go down. When you go up on your toes, shoulders also goes up. And when you go down, shoulders goes down. This is an exercise. You can continue. Okay, and you do it monotonously, constantly, without stopping. Now the harder part of the exercise, you continue to do it, but close your eyes. Okay, you will find out that your balance is a bit breaking. Okay, and I want you to find a way to balance yourself from your legs instead of from your eyes. It's okay if you fall, it's okay if you dance a bit in the room. So shoulders up and shoulders down. Breathing in and breathing out. And we're going to do it now for 1 minute. Okay, and what you're looking for is to do this movement and at the same time to balance yourself from your legs. A few more times. And it's enough. Keep your eyes closed. And please open a bit your legs a bit more wide. Relax a bit your knees. And feel your feet on the floor, on the ground. And breathe fully. You can notice that your body have a bit of a movement. Allow it. If there's movement, just allow this movement to happen. And breathe fully. Relax your shoulders. Notice your body fully. Notice your legs. And breathe. And now open your eyes. And when you open your eyes, try to keep your attention and to feel the room around you. You can feel that now from your body. You can also feel more the room. And just notice this. Continue to breathe. And feel your body, feel your feet, feel the space around you. From your body. So instead of seeing the room, try to feel the room around you. And what I would like you to try to do for this meeting with Peter is that also when you listen through the computer, you still try to pay attention from your body to other people and to what we are learning, and it's not coming only from the eyes or from the thinking. Thank you.
Thank you, Rivka. Okay, so I'm actually sitting on the floor today. So, yeah, that was a little glimpse of being more embodied in this meeting now with Peter and yeah, about 102 currently other people from all over the globe. And yeah, Peter, I would ask you to unmute yourself so that we can begin. So as Peter is doing that, I just want to welcome you with all my heart. So Peter is not only an amazing sage, I should say, who's been developing tools and systems to accelerate consciousness and human development for over 40 years. He's also a seminal thinker in the area of what he calls behavioral finance and organizational architecture. And at the heart of his expertise is really a series of deep insights regarding our relationship to money, the realization of our life purpose, and also organizations and succession. Yeah, so Peter has been my mentor. I've been so lucky to have him as my mentor and my friend for 15 years. And now it's my pleasure to bring his thinking to this audience. So welcome, Peter.
Thank you, and hello everybody. And this is quite daunting to see so many people around, but of course they're all attracted to you, Nadia. And I'm wondering, after this wonderful exercise with Rivka, I wonder if anybody really wants to talk about money. I think we could continue just doing the exercise.
We will do that next week to absolutely deepen the process in the body. But now, you know, thank you for saying they were all attracted to me. I'm sure that's absolutely true, but I'm also sure a number of them came because of you. So I will begin a conversation with you now, and then we'll take that into the group at a later stage in time. So Peter, in a nutshell, you've developed a process that you call money work. What would you say is money work?
Money work is looking into your relationship to money. And if you feel that you need to, for any reason, if you feel it's in any way limiting your relationship to money, money work is about helping you to develop it. So to develop your relationship, to become more competent in dealing with it in everyday life, and actually it knocks on to your life as a whole. So it's really using money as an entry door, your relationship to money as that's an entry door to look at what you're doing with your life. And the bottom line of it is actually to make sure and to help everybody to fully live their life path, their vocation. The bottom line is really that. You ask yourself, well, why did I come to this planet? What's in it? Why did I arrive here? And make sure that you answer that fully with everything in your life. And if there's any limitation anywhere, the relationship to money does tend to mirror that. So we use the relationship to money as a kind of treasure chest to help become more conscious of any limitation around that and then move beyond it.
Mm-hmm. So when I hear you talk, then that actually means, from your perspective, money work is identity work.
Oh, it is, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
So Peter, in you know, the work that you do, you always refer to something that you call the normal regime and the natural regime. And I wonder if you could talk a bit about these two different ways of being in the world.
So, so the normal regime is what we have all been, I believe, with very, very few exceptions, conditioned into, and by and large still are. And the way it looks on the surface is that we all work, we've been taught from very young ages that we need money to do, have, or be what we want. And that in order to have money, we need to work, and work in going back to the Industrial Revolution and far beyond that, the Industrial Age, was something rather unpleasant. It certainly was in the factories at the start of the Industrial Revolution, and that's been carried forward. So we're meant to work in order to receive money, which is called compensation for actually damage that we do to ourselves, which was the case during the factories. On the assumption, on the supposition, if you work hard enough, at some point in your life, you'll have your money sorted out. And then you can jump off what we now call the treadmill and start to be, do, or have what you want in life. And this worked very well for previous generations, because what previous generations wanted was actually material products at the end of the production line. And what I came to when I started researching this in the 1980s, I saw that actually this doesn't work anymore. Why? Because what people want now, what we all want now, we have enough, certainly in Western countries, enough material products, but what we're looking for are immaterial things. And the normal regime is insufficient to provide you immaterial things like peace, love, security, freedom, the sort of things that most or maybe all of us are really deeply looking for right now, rather than 5 more computers or 10 more Teslas or something like that. So unfortunately, it's a bit tragic if you're still on this, what I'm calling this normal regime, working very, very hard to get money at some level or other, hoping that at some time you can stop. If you've got enough, you'll find that you can't actually stop easily or at all. And you don't get to your security or to your freedom. So that's what I call the normal regime. And the natural regime is just looking at how nature works, because nature starts by, a tree or a cow or a cat doesn't look to earn. There's nothing to earn in life, actually. They don't look to earn anything. A cat doesn't look to earn and feel that it's good enough before it deserves its whiskers. You present the whiskers and it just eats the whiskers because it has its birthright. When it's born, it feels it has the right to have whiskers or whatever else. And a natural regime works very differently. So that, the object actually is to start by doing your work or your opus or your vocation in life. And if you're capable of doing that, when you're ready to do that, you will discover that the universe supplies all that you need in order to continue to do more of what you want, which is really what your vocation is about ultimately. So that's what I call the natural regime. And the problem that most people that I've come across are facing is that we're so conditioned, we've been so educated into the normal regime that we don't really know how to get off it. And that's what the money work is about. It's a system, step by step by step by step, to be able to get off it, free yourself, and do more and more and more of what you want in life.
So in summary, then we could say the normal regime consists of the cycle of I work, so I get compensated, so then I can consume. And it also appears to me that it's a bit of an open-ended spiral that people get in, right? Because the more money they make, the more they consume, the more they need to work in order to make more money, in order to consume, and so on and so on. So it feels like a golden cage that we've sort of spiraled ourselves into. And then on the other hand, you're talking about the natural regime, which, and I would suppose even if we move away from animals, and even if we look at sort of how some of the tribes that human beings have already had on this planet have understood at some point that there is a natural balance, a natural give and take, a flow between what we need and what we give, and that if we can find a natural way of being in that, then we are provided for.
We are actually provided for. We are actually provided for even when we're living in what I call the normal regime. Yeah, the point is that we don't realize how we're being provided. When you start to do what you love in life, you see how everything is, you get to become conscious how everything is flowing towards what you want to be doing in life. And that may be happening with the normal regime, with the normal regime too, but you just don't notice it because you're so busy on this treadmill or this spiral, or this cage.
Yeah, and what keeps us stuck in this normal regime? Why don't we just sort of wake up suddenly and go, this is crazy, let me start doing what I want to be doing?
Because it's deeply conditioned into ourselves, into our bodies, actually. This is where Rivka will come in. And of course, if we want to step out of it, and many of us already have, the collective is so strong wanting to put us back into it, starting with most people's parents. I had to go through this with my parents. When I stepped out, from a good career in property and so forth, my parents were scared shitless. They thought, all the investment they'd made to have me be a good son and grow up in a good profession, and there I was wasting my life. So I experienced an enormous amount of pressure, and I hear these stories from many other people today. Still, as soon as you move out beyond traditional kind of professional or occupation, or what we call jobs. Jobs are actually labels that were originally put on machines with a description, and are then applied later to people. As soon as we become a bit more creative and say, I don't want to do a job with a label on it that just describes me, I'm a creative person, we're going to find still less so than in the past, but quite a lot of objection to people who think they know us and think they would like us to stay just as we were before. So that's a little bit of the challenge that we're facing. And it's becoming easier now, and particularly with the COVID crisis and the jobs disappearing, it looks like we're heading for very difficult times. But in a sense, I see as a real opportunity to move out if we are ready for it, if the consciousness is there. And I'm assuming that 109 people who are with us, I assume that for every one of us here, you're ready for it, or we're ready for this.
Well, they signed up for some reason. Let's at least assume that. So Peter, when you talk about the consciousness work, then what is the work that needs to be done in order to reach that, amazing sounding place where we can all do what we want and sort of feel that life provides?
Well, what we haven't been educated in related to money is how money really works. It's amazing when you think about it. I started looking into this in 1982 and went to my university, went to my business school. And I said, I really want to know, you haven't taught me this in finance, but please tell me, what does money do with people and what do people do with their money? I mean, what's wise and what's sound relation to money? And to my astonishment, I found that not only was nobody able to explain it but nobody was interested at that time. My professors responded that actually this is really uninteresting. All you need to know is how to make more money or spend less of it. Anything else is really of no consequence at all. And that's really what got me researching it. I said, that must be nonsense. So I want to know. And it took me 7 years to find out, but actually it was only because I wasn't really intelligent enough to ask the right question. And if you don't ask the right question, you get the wrong answer. So the right question, and this is the question which everybody can ask themselves, is what is money? And if you ask that question, everybody will come up actually with a different answer. But the bottom line of it is that money works through the process which Carl Gustav Jung, the psychologist who had his center here where I live in Zurich, described in terms of the word projection. So money is actually, it's nothing really. And it's, it sounds strange to say that, but if I hold up, a piece of, this is just a piece of paper, but it's a piece of paper with influence. And if I hold up another piece of paper, you might say, well, this piece of paper has far less influence than this piece of paper. But you might not know what's written inside or on the back of this piece of paper, which potentially could have much more influence. For example, I may have written on the back that I promise you 100 hours of my time. And if I didn't turn it around, your choice would instantly change about which piece of paper would be more valuable or which you'd like. And the reason that happens is these two pieces of paper don't change. They're just still the same pieces of paper, but there's stuff going on in your mind. And that's the fundamental of understanding the basis of what I'm calling money work. Because to understand what's going on in your mind, which translates into your choice about which piece of paper to take, and then has further subsequent consequences actually in your life, in the choice of your career, in the choice of your life partner, in the choice of your nutrition, in the choice of how you use your time, and all other aspects of life. And so we need to really go back to first principles and look at what are you projecting with your ideas. And I know that many of you are coaches or consultants or maybe entrepreneurs. And actually we're dealing with something very simple. It's the entrepreneurial principle. If you want to realize something in your life, it always starts with an idea, which you then have put some energy behind. And if there's enough energy behind it, you realize your idea. Now, the thing is, when we deal with projections like this and onto something like money, and you're not aware of what you're projecting onto it, very unfortunately, the situation reverses, because you manifest your ideas, which are not conscious, will manifest things in your life, which you're not aware that you are actually doing it. So when somebody says things like, something like money work makes the world go around, it's not money that's making your world go around. It's actually you making your world go around. You're just not aware of how you're making it go around.
Peter, let me dig a little deeper into that. So I'm understanding that you also think about projections in sort of types of projections, right? So that different people have different types of normally unconscious projections. So they're they're manifesting something different in the world. Can you speak a bit to those different types?
Thank you. Yeah. So if you project, now, if you understand this notion of projection, you will be projecting certain qualities onto money. And they may be positive qualities like freedom, ones I mentioned, security. You might say, money is my security. I can't possibly be secure without money. You might even say it's your existence. We talk about existence, money as if it's existence. It's your life. Happiness. If you project positive qualities or attributes onto what we're calling money, you will naturally run after it. It will be, you know, you'll just, because you'll be saying, well, money is my security, so I can't be secure without money, therefore I need to have more of it. The problem is that even if you run after it and have more of it, double it, treble it, quintuple it, you haven't touched your inner security. So you, as one of my colleagues says, you're always looking for 30% more, no matter how much you have. So that's what puts you on the treadmill on that side of the equation. Now, you may, though, have negative attributes which you relate to money, negative projections or negative qualities. And if you do that, you may not be aware how you are actually pushing money away from you. So, you know, when I've been running my money seminars, I usually have a mixture of both in the room. Some people running after money like crazy and having lots of savings, but actually spending is a real fearful thing, because you might lose your security. You might lose your freedom or happiness if you spend some of your money. I used to be like that. But on the other hand, if you're saying, well, money is a source of conflict, or money is dirty or evil, or money is war, you may not be aware of how you're actually pushing it away from you. You know, because why would you want to take something like money and put it close to your heart if it's dirty and evil and nasty and horrible? And so there are very subtle ways in the second case of where money is pushed away. You know, the language is, for example, you receive an inheritance or you receive a gift, and you will say something, well, this isn't mine because I haven't earned it. That's a very common way of pushing money away from you. So those are two kinds of basic patterns which make you turn the treadmill in either one direction or the opposite direction. But there's a third thing which I call the washing machine, is when you have both positive and negative attributes projected onto money, then you'll be running after it like crazy, maybe earning lots of money, but then also pushing it away like crazy at the same time. So that's why I call it, you know, in constant motion. And there are, you know, this is quite a common pattern of behavior as well. So I identify, Nadia, basically these three patterns.
Yeah, thank you. And the third pattern, the washing machine, is definitely something that I know for myself, which is sort of this movement that somehow fluctuates between greed and disgust, right? So it creates this weird wave of, you know, being able to generate money, and which I was for many years, but then at the same time, the moment it came as nearly too close to me, I would find a way to give it away and just not have too much of it, because somehow it didn't feel right. It felt sticky. It felt wrong.
Yeah.
Right? So I think looking at the time, because I would love to give people a bit of a moment to digest in small groups what they've learned so far, to just summarize, right? So you said there is the type of projections where people have unconscious negative projections on money, like money is dirty, money is greedy, money is corrupt. And the movement for them will usually be to find a way to not let money into their life at all, or push it away very quickly, or lose it, or have it be taken away from them.
Or
right?
go into debt. Where being in debt may be more comfortable actually than saving.
Mm-hmm. So that's one type with the unconscious negative projections. Then we have the unconscious positive projections, where the movement is constantly to have more of that in my life, because I think I can only be free, I can only have luxury, I can only have well-being if I have money. And unfortunately, that creates a movement of never having enough of this magical substance, because I actually feel like I have to secure that thing somehow in my space, right? So I have a movement of greed, a movement of running after it. And I would assume that also accounts on some level for sort of the cycle of capitalism, where we have a huge number of people who have potentially unconscious negative projections of money, push it away into the hands of the few who have very strong unconscious positive projections and who pull it towards themselves. Would that be right?
Absolutely. I mean, basically, that's the bottom line of understanding the money system. The money system is actually a zero-sum game in the way it's been created for 350 years in terms of the creation of money. So you can't have money without having debt. And on the surface, you have interest rates and brokers' fees and all these things, but underneath, the pattern which relates to inequality, which is such a topical theme right now, is exactly happening as you describe. And it's been interesting to me in the last 10, 15 years to watch as the world becomes more unequal. It's because at a certain level, the middle ground, small businesses in high streets, where people were happy with money in the past, they've lost their business and they blame it on money. So there are more and more people actually unconsciously pushing money away from them because they're becoming less and less happy with money and the money system. And this actually makes them push even more away into the hands of the few that are very happy to think they're very happy to have more of it, but don't know what to do with it. I was with a family in Belgium a number of years, quite a wealthy family, where there was an aunt with her nephew. And she said, it's terrible. This poor guy, he has chocolate. It's like the money is flowing over his head like hot chocolate, melted chocolate, and he can't stop it. Just to give you this image.
Yeah. Well, you can also drown in hot chocolate, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so listen, obviously there is much more to explore, much more, and many questions to be asked. But before we go into asking questions, let's make sure that we give all of you a moment of time to process, to reflect on what you heard so far. So what I will do now is I'm going to post some instructions into the chat. So please open the chat window so that you can see what I posted. So you will be sent into breakout groups of 3 to 4 people. The first thing I would ask you to do is find somebody who has a phone with a timer. So that person's job is not to moderate any big conversation, but basically just give you 2 minutes to reflect on the questions that we're posting in silence. And once you had those 2 minutes of silent reflection, then it's about sharing time, and everybody has 3 minutes to share about some or all of these questions. So you don't have to speak to those questions, they're just a conversation starter in a way. And the questions that we have is, what do I feel in my body right now? So connecting back to, to the movements that Rivka did with us. Now we had a lot of insight into money, monetary systems, projections on money. What did I create for you physically? Then talk about what I heard actually touched me. And if you want to talk about what I heard gives me some indication about what projection type I might be. So do I have more positive projections, more negative projections, or am I the washing machine type that sort of fluctuates those two in sort of rapid cycle? And then take a few minutes at the end to collect questions that you might have for Peter or for me, or for Rivka possibly. And then come back. And just in terms of ground rules, it's really more about giving yourself a moment to reflect, to settle, to ground yourself, take your full 3 minutes. So even if you feel after 1 minute you don't have anything to say, then you're silent and sit with the others in silence and just allow to whatever needs to bubble up. Sometimes in the last, 20 seconds, you have something really important to say. So give yourself the space, the gift of time. And the person who times you, when the time is up, the 3 minutes, sort of wave your hand to let the other people know that time is up. All right, so Mark, I would say you hit the magic button. And we have 20 minutes for this, and then we shall see you back here in plenary. Enjoy. Bye. Okay. Oh. I think somebody got stuck.
Yeah, might have been a crash.
It looks like he froze.
Yeah. Either he's stuck in the joining process.
Okay. Well, actually, I'm surprised to see how quickly that works with many people. I thought this would be a long process for. Yay! So now they will join us again in 20 minutes.
Okay, so
Mark, do you want to pause the recording just for again, please? Thank you. All right, so we hope you had a wonderful and fruitful and interesting time in your breakout groups. And I would love for you to raise a virtual hand if you want to ask a question of myself, of Rivka, of Peter, of anybody here in this room. And Mark, could I ask you to explain to people how they raise their virtual hand for a second?
Sure. If you look on the bottom of your screen, this should be on both mobile devices and your desktop. You have a button that says participants. If you click on that, you can see everyone that's currently in the Zoom room. And on the bottom of that list, you should have either a button that says raise hand or a little blue icon with a hand. And I see a lot of people have already found it because here they come. Yeah, if you click that, we can see it. You get pushed up to the top and then we can call on you.
Right. Okay, so let me call on a few people. Andy, I will try to unmute you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thanks, Nadja, and thanks, Peter, for this space. One question that seemed to emerge in different ways in our group, and I'll try my best to ask it in a way that captures that, is this idea that on the other side of the normal regime, in the natural regime, there's a new way of relating to money. And that's not positive valence or negative valence or washing machine, but there's something else that's closer to reality or closer to truth. And would love to hear you speak to that, if that question makes sense. What might be the new ways we could start to relate to money?
Shall I answer that, Nadja?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's a question of focus, really. So what you're referring to as a new way is that if you're in the normal regime, your focus will be on this, what I've called treadmill, or rat race, or however you like to call it. You will be focused on trying to bring that to a certain point where then you can get off and stop it. Now, in the natural regime, you are focused on just step by step, day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, just figuring out what you really want to do next, and ideally what you love doing. And with that focus, what I'm suggesting is that money starts to flow. It doesn't necessarily do what you want, what you think you'll want, but it will be flowing. If you can trust it enough, you will see that money, and not just money, all resources are flowing in a way which will be supporting you and supporting your initiative. So what we're talking about is actually moving into a sort of flow system where money is also flowing in the same kind of way. That would be my answer.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Peter, I'm going to the next question, which is by Diana. And Diana, if you could speak up.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Peter, for sharing your wisdom. I have a question about the numbers of people who are either projecting the positive or the negative onto money. And I thought I heard you essentially say that there were not that many people who were projecting the positive and the pursuit of it relative to the number who were pushing it away. And I can understand that in terms of if you look at global society. But my question is, in our consumerist Western culture, my experience would be that most people are actually pursuing it and pursuing it pretty hard. And so I have that question, what is the real balance? And is it just because of the community we're sitting in that we experience it one way or another? And is there a generational distinction? Like in the current next generation, let's say 20s, are they less focused on pursuit of wealth than the older generations?
Wow, what a question. Thank you. It's always difficult to generalize. But generally speaking, if you look at the dialogue and what is put out in the media, you would be given to believe that most people are running after money, including those that are actually pushing it away because they don't have enough. And what you'll hear coming out of their mouths is, well, of course, I don't have enough. I need to have money for my rent. I need to have money to eat, etc. But the experience I have, and you know, this is going back years and years, and with hundreds and probably thousands of people with their stories, is empirically that there are more and more people who are actually in reality pushing it away. And you might not recognize that from the things that they are saying. It's like, I test it, for example, if I have a seminar, I will walk up to a person and give them a £50 note. And then you can try it yourself. Try going down the street where you live. I don't know where you live, but try going down the street where you live and giving away £10, £50, £30, and you'll see people will not come running and grab it and put it in their pocket. I would place a £100 bet with you on that. At least 60 or 70% will say no, it's not mine, I don't want it, or what are you trying to do? You know, be suspicious, etc. So you can test this out very easily yourself.
Intriguing idea. So Peter, could you reflect on the generational topic?
I really don't know, Diana. Obviously, generally speaking, the younger people are becoming, well, a lot of them are much more aware, becoming much more green than when I grew up, or probably you grew up. And, but what I find in families, for example, there's no common pattern even in a family. So that, you know, there might be a son who's running after another and money, and a daughter who's pushing it away from her. Mm-hmm. And these are being influenced by the same parents, you know? So, you know, if you want to know what's good for the children, there's no set typical thing like pocket money and the way you should handle that. The best thing you can do for your children is to work on your relationship to money, because at some level they're following you anyway.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's great.
Sure.
You know, maybe on the topic of generational change, I do think there is probably something happening where the next generation is moving more into what Peter previously described about looking for the intangible, right? So I've had a lot of people that I've spoken to in my field, where I realized what they're looking for is not necessarily the biggest entry wage. What they're looking for is a job that allows them to live a balanced life, right? So if they're seeking to become parents, then they want to actually have a job that gives them enough time to see their children grow up. They want to have enough time to go traveling and explore the world. They want to have enough time to explore hobbies that they might have, or interests outside of their job, right? So I'm seeing a shift there, and I think for a lot of organizations now, that is actually becoming a challenge, is to realize by giving them a big paycheck, that might not be the thing that will actually drive them into this job. So how do we become attractive employers as well, that give people a more well-rounded access to life, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to Matt Cooper. Matt?
Hi, yeah, hi Nadia. So Peter, we met, I think it must have been 10, 15 years ago, and I'm still confused.
Congratulations.
Yes. In our group, I shared that I spent the 3 minutes struggling with the notion that I perceive myself as being completely indifferent to money, and didn't know therefore where to put that. And the idea of indifference is that it's a bit like time. Money's there. If you want to do something with it, go and get it. If you don't want to do anything or don't need it, don't do anything that brings money towards you. So maybe you can just reflect a little bit on that. What is indifference to money?
Well, either you're enlightened, Matt.
Not yet, I'm working on it.
or you might have a very subtle strategy of not wanting to look at it and pushing it away at some level. That's what it would sound like to me, because, you know, another way of looking at it, you know, there's no problem with money, really. There's no problem with having a lot of it. There's no problem with having a little of it. And there's no problem with being in debt. And there's actually no judgment. If there is a God, I don't think God is actually judging anything around that, because the money system as we've created it, and we humans have created it, as I say, it's a zero-sum game. So if you understand that, some people, where there is money, there has to be debt. So there can't be really ultimately any judgment whether you have it, what position you're taking in it. But, and here's the but, the question is your relationship to money supporting your calling? Are you making yourself, for example, too small, and using money as an excuse not to fulfill fully what you're really capable of? Or are you running after it in such a way that you can't even follow your calling? These are the kind of questions which are really key. And ideally, you know, I would, and everybody, I could ask everybody this, you know, if you can understand something around your vocational calling, and you could point to it with one arm and say, this is where I'm going, this is where I'm heading, this is my direction. I would then ask you to look at your relationship to money and see whether the other arm is going in the same direction, or whether it's going upwards, downwards, or pulling you somewhere else. And that's the ultimate question that we're looking at here. Is your relationship to money actually supporting your life calling, your life path, or however you like to name it?
And Peter and Matt, since I happen to know you quite well, Matt, I don't know about the enlightened piece. I think you're quite far removed from that. No, but honestly, I think you're one of the people who I know who has probably one of the healthiest relationships to money. So it might actually be that the amount of projections that you still have around this subject is is quite limited, because I've always experienced Matt, for example, as a person who plays with money quite freely. And you've always created the money that you needed in order to pursue the things that were of value to you, of deeper value in terms of your soul's calling. So yeah, so maybe you didn't come up with that much around it, because there actually isn't that much left, which is a lovely
which is what I meant by enlightened.
Yeah. Yeah. So listen, I'm looking at the number of blue hands here, and also looking at the time and realizing that there will not be enough time in the original time frame to get to all of these questions and talk a bit about what comes up next. So one quick question to Peter. Peter, do you have to leave in 15 minutes sharp, or do you have a bit more time?
No, I have time.
Great. Okay, so my offer to the group would be, for those of you who want to stay on after, after the 15 minutes of our official time are up, to stay on, and we have a bit more time for Q&A. And then let me allow the moment now to actually talk a bit about what is next, because we do have more to offer around the subject of money. So for example, next week at Tuesday, the same time as today, Rivka will be offering a session around money and body and the money and body in the money that I think shall be amazing. We don't know yet exactly what she's going to do, because we want to talk about that tomorrow to really see how her work can be aligned with Peter's work. And I will say a bit more about that, where the link is between the two. I have two panels here. Peter is here and Rivka is there, so we'll create that connection. So I very much hope to see many of you during next week's session. And after this session is done, you will receive an email with a link to the recording of today, and also another invitation to the session with Rivka, so you can then sign up if you haven't done so already. And of course, I also want to use the opportunity to talk a bit about the CU Money program, which is a co-creation of Peter and myself, and with support from Rivka. So basically what I did as my Corona project is, during the lockdown, I sat down and I took all the things that I could get from Peter around his money work. And he had lots and lots of writing that he collected over the years, and he just sent everything my way. And I tried to make some sense out of that, because it's quite a big body of work. There's a lot of thought that went into that over the last 30 or 40 years, as you can imagine. And what I tried to do is also, given my own experience with money work, because I took the first money course in 15 years ago or something, and realizing it is a long process, right? So on the one hand, it's amazing, of course, to be in a room with Peter and do a 2-day money process with him. It's a great experience. However, I can also say, in order to get this working in your own life, for most people at any rate, it takes time, right? It's a bit like peeling an onion, because you realize what keeps you locked in the old regime, the normal regime, as Peter described it at the beginning of the call, are all of these projections that we accumulated over the years. And to shed them is a process, right? And sometimes we're so lucky to unlock the one giant projection that changes everything the moment it happens. And sometimes it's more like shedding one layer after the next layer after the next layer. So what we've now created is a program that we call CU Money. It's a 11-week course, and it will take you step by step through all the different elements of this money work. So week by week, you get access to audio recordings that give you more insight into Peter's thinking around money. That is combined with self-reflection exercises, and then you'll be put into a triad of other participants in your cohort and work with them through some of the realizations of the process you've just been through. And then the whole thing is topped up by a video conference that will be, most of them will be with Peter and myself. And then there are 2 bonus conferences with Rivka that again take up the whole question of how do we land it fully in the body. This whole process is, as I said, an 11-week process. So it does take commitment, right? So it's, and also in all fairness, if you're joining because you think, oh, finally I can crack, my question around money and I'm going to be rich, that's not what's going to happen. Because actually one of the things that I love most about Peter's money work is the realization that if we come into ourselves, if we fully follow our life path, the relationship or the experience we make with money can be very different. So some people, you know, actually do become filthy rich. Other people will realize that living with debt is part of their path and it's okay. And to relax fully into my reality with money, whatever it is, shall be the hopeful outcome out of this session. And in terms of, you know, if you're wondering, is this something for me? Is this really what I want to be doing? Or who do we hope to attract with this program? We thought long and hard about that as well. And I would say it speaks to a number of different people. So on the one hand, we could say it's great for, you know, entrepreneurs, founders, CEOs who want to create a conscious impact with their business. It's fantastic for investors who want to take the money they've already made and give it to something meaningful and really create something flourishing and deeper in the world. It's amazing for activists who want to increase their influence and reach and do that from a fully embodied place around the subject of money. And it's of course great for all the colleagues that are now here in the space together. So coaches who want to learn this process also, not just, well, primarily for themselves first and foremost, but then of course also to bring this to your clients. Because from my understanding of the money work, and you know, obviously anybody who just wants to really change their money story for once and for all, right? And who doesn't say, who's not a coach, who's not an investor, but who just says, I want to crack this. I want to reinvent how I am with money and really find a way to move into this natural cycle of doing what I want, to love what I'm doing, and to feel that I'm actually supported by what the world has to provide. So as you see, it's a wide range of people that we're pulling into this work, but I'm feeling very supported in this mission because that's what Peter has been doing for 40 years now. So the workshops you run, Peter, are always full of the most colorful participants one could imagine, right? Yeah, so Peter, anything from your end you want to add to what I've been talking about?
Nadia, you're so beautifully articulate. There's very little that I would need to add. And just to say to everybody, those that you don't know Nadia, she is brilliant with processes and this kind of technology. It's just a pleasure and delight to be working, to be invited to be working with her on this. Just one thing I would add is that in my view, I had no intention to study this in such depth, the subject of money, and what has kept me at it for, well, as Nadia is saying, almost 40 years, is that when I came to my realization of what it was about, I saw then, and this is going back to the early 90s, that the big questions in life, and those such as, for example, we have the SDGs, inequality, energy, ecology, morality. None of these big questions that are being posed right now, they cannot be answered. They cannot be answered without being aware of the relationship to money, going really to the bottom of this. So we're dealing with individual questions. So you come to this to look at your own relationship to money. But actually, I've stayed with it because I've seen the consequences that can have in family. First of all, your partnership, family, but then your social and your community, and then going outwards, right out to globally. So I consider the individual work, and I think more and more people are understanding this now. It looks very slow, but it's absolutely essential. Any big change like the Berlin Wall, for example, coming down, definitely started with one individual who started a movement. And that's why the movement that you create in you and the relationship to money weaves through absolutely everything. And all the big questions we're facing in life right now, the movement that you create in you has that potential effect, and especially in the relationship to money, because this is like it's the most taboo subject, disguising the deepest parts, covering the deepest parts of, one could say, what Carl Gustav Jung called the shadow. And when you touch that, there's an incredible amount of potential to be released and harvested for you individually, but also going all the way up globally. And so I have a deep conviction that we have to touch this. We have to touch this if we're going to even start to look at the questions we're facing for future generations. So that's all I would add.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. And I fully agree. And part of the idea to bring this into this blended learning space has also been the question of how do we scale this, which I think is one of the most fundamentally important processes I've ever learned in my life. How do we get this out there? Because I do think that the solutions we're now needing to develop, whether we think about something like global basic income, for example, if that is created from the level of understanding and the level of projection that we have right now, it cannot work in the way we want it to work. It needs to be done from a different level of awareness. And by using a blended learning format like the one that we're proposing now, we can actually scale this in a much faster way to more people on this planet. And that doesn't take away from all the wonderful work that other people who've already been trained in Peter's work do with their live money workshops. I honestly think any workshop in this space right now is needed to take this bigger. And of course, just to finish talking about CU Money, the course has a fee. Peter and I decided the fee is 750 euros plus tax for the 11-week program. However, since it's a money program, we actually want you to work a bit, which means at the end of the day, you will have to set your own fee somewhere between 750 and 250. And this process of deciding and determining how big your fee is already part of the work of the program, because we are not going to check your financial status. We don't want to see any bank statements. So at the end of the day, it's you and your conscience and your process that will determine what your fee is going to be. And that will be a bit painful for some people. By experience, we know that already creates friction in people, and that is amazing because all of that is part of what we're going to work with. So I will, for those of you who will have to leave right on time, I will post the link to the website, which was built by my beloved friend and colleague, Michelle, who is on this call as well. And she created the page for the CU Money program. And I think it turned out beautiful. I'm very, very grateful for her. So you can find more information there. And for any of you who now need to leave, it was amazing to have you. And for those who want to stay a bit longer, I would say we do another 15 minutes trying to get to as many questions as we can before we wrap this up. Okay?
Can I just add one more thing?
Yes, of course.
Just around the price. I mean, we don't want to limit you to 750 euros, just to add that. I mean, the limit is infinity. If you feel that it's so great and you must throw more money at us, even if it's chocolate, hot chocolate. I know how to deal with hot chocolate. So you can throw as much hot chocolate as you like at me.
Fantastic. I like that. And also, if you feel like paying a higher fee, then that also means you're co-financing somebody who might not be able to pay that much, right? So it will be a wonderful flow. One of you is asking, would you recommend an 18-year-old who just finished school to participate in the 11-week course?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. One of the most brilliant participants I've had was from Hungary, a 16-year-old, and just amazing.
Yeah, so basically you're never too young to start this work. It will save you a lot of grief down the line. But let's get to a few more questions. So I see Valentine. Can you unmute yourself?
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So I did the 4-day workshop with Tim Malnick, which ended yesterday.
Oh, right.
So I'm very, very deep in this. And so my question is this: if we do have unhealthy, unconscious associations with money or projections, and we develop reclamation statements to reclaim parts of ourselves that are hidden in the shadow, to remove those projections, how do we know when we've got the reclamation statement right? Because of course we can adjust certain words, can't we? And So how did we get the statement right? And I understand that the integration process is a sort of, you know, how long is a piece of string, but how do we know when significant progress has been achieved?
Well, this is where Rivka comes in, because you look at your body and your emotions, and if you feel something, I'm sure if you've done this with Tim, you'll feel some movement occurring in your body, in different parts of your body. Did that happen, Valentine?
It certainly did.
Yeah. So if that's happening, you know that you're on the way to this reclamation process. When it starts to integrate more and more, actually what happens is a muscular release of tension. And if it's strong, and maybe you saw this in your workshop with Tim, what happens is that involuntarily you'll start to laugh. Did this happen to you, or did you see this happening?
Yes, I did see it, yeah.
Yeah, so that's how you know that it's working. And as I was just talking with Rivka and Nadia before we started, the laugh actually, if you've been holding the tension very strongly and for a very long time, the laugh will come in waves and can take, and you might start laughing for minutes, 5 minutes, just non-stop laughter. But it doesn't have to be that. But it can be that. And I can tell you, if you do it in a group, it can be quite contagious.
And do you have to deliver the reclamation statements to other people, or can you do it by yourself?
No, you do. No, this is internal work that you do with yourself, actually.
Right.
But you might need other people because you're dealing with unconscious projections, which maybe other people can see, usually can see easier than you can, because they're unconscious for you.
I would love to hear a bit from Rivka about what your thoughts are on this in the body.
I'm thinking that in a way we are not aware so much how much effort we are doing around money in our body, and how much we hold it and how much tension there is. And when we really let go of it, exactly what Peter said, there is a big relief, and basically then this energy is available to what we really want to do in life.
Yeah. So in a sense, what both of you are saying, this money work is really about becoming more whole, having more access to what it means to be fully me. Yeah.
Exactly. And it leads to a better well-being in all levels of it, as Peter said.
Yeah.
Okay. And many times, even if it's in outside appearance, everything is fine with money, still our body can be full of fear connected to that. And we want to have reality and our experience to be one, to become one.
Yeah. Thank you, Rivka, for that as well. And Peter, actually, because we haven't really talked about that before, but if you could speak a bit more to what is the actual process once I'm becoming more clear or conscious of the projections that I have on money. So, let's, for example, say my projection is people who have money are manipulative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what do I do now?
So, manipulative, is kind of a negative thing. So, as you said, Nadia, the work is identity work. So the goal at the end, if you're talking, as I was saying to Matt, maybe he's enlightened. An enlightened person is whole in the sense that they have no difficulty with living all the parts of themselves, whether we would normally judge them as good or bad. So manipulator is normally considered something bad. But actually, in the money work, in our work, we don't consider any part of yourself as bad. It's just a manifestation which can be used when it's appropriate or not when it's inappropriate. So there are many situations where it's absolutely appropriate to manipulate. And if we consider it's bad, what happens is that we don't get rid of our internal manipulator because it's part of us, but we suppress it, and then it, at some time when we're under pressure, it'll come out unprovoked in an inappropriate way that we don't like.
Mm.
And the way we resolve this is actually to fall in love with it. So we do this in my work, with the money work, by reclaiming it. This is what we were talking about with Valentine. So I say to myself, I start by saying I'm a manipulator, and I give myself permission to be one. And everybody, you know, in the room here, we're now 70 of us, you can try doing that, seeing how you like being a manipulator. Now, many of you will say, well, you know, not me, you know, I tend to get manipulated. You know, those are not nice people. But try just saying I'm a manipulator, and it's perfectly okay to be a manipulator, because you're probably doing it anyway, but just suppressing it. And this is the way you control your manipulator, to be able to use it when it's constructive. And there will be situations when it'll be constructive to be able to manipulate, like you might want a cat on your shoulder at one moment, but you might want to manipulate the cat to get it off your shoulder at another. And the question is, when is that appropriate, or when is it not appropriate? So we're all manipulators at some level, and just to, that's the process of reclamation. And that's just half of the process. To neutralize the subject, we need to look at what's the opposite of manipulator. And then we need to reclaim that as well. I won't go into too much detail here because it would take too long. But that's what we do. We bring with our reclamation to a point, we bring this process to a point where one becomes neutral about the possibility to manipulate or its reverse. And then the subject is covered, is ticked off, and we're freer and not conditioned by that or triggered by that situation anymore.
So Peter, what I'm actually hearing there is, in a sense, all reclamation work, as you would call it, is shadow work. And it doesn't matter if I reclaim something that I deem to be a negative quality like manipulation, or a positive quality like freedom, for example, because it's all part of something that I have located outside of myself. And to get that back into my sense of identity, and then have conscious access to it, so that I'm able to spend it in a way wherever it might be appropriate, as you said.
Absolutely. So if we go to the, you know, you've given an example of a negative attribute. If we go to the positive one, like freedom, if you say, for example, money is my freedom, and you are convinced about this, what you're really doing in terms of your identity is saying, I'm actually an unfree person hoping to be free at some point when I have enough of this. So your identity is locked up with being unfree. So the way we work is to say, to use another phrase, I'm free with and without money. And this will feel like a lie at the beginning, because you'll say, well, you know, I'm free with money, but I'm not free without money. But you have to understand, we use lies in this process constructively. They are good lies because they touch a deeper level of truth. So if you are really wanting to be free, you can't be free if you need money. You're telling yourself a lie. If you say freedom is money, money is freedom, then you're really saying, well, you know, I'm free, but I need money, so I'm not free. So you're only free really when you're free with money, but also without money. Then you're really free.
So Peter, I'm realizing we're now already diving into the depth of this work, and that can feel a bit like you're turning somebody's brain into a pretzel, because I remember when I heard that for the first time, I went, wait, what? So maybe just to summarize, because I also saw the question by Michael about, so taking the projections back, what does that actually mean? So in essence, what Peter's work speaks to is money doesn't exist, right? Money is a human creation, it's an invention, because right now, the money we think we have are basically zeros and ones in a computer, and the only reason why they exist is because we believe that they do. And the moment we stop believing in it, all of that goes away, especially if we stop believing it collectively. So money is what I believe it is. And if I have unconscious negative projections on money, like money is dirty, money is manipulation, or money is greed, then the question is, how can I reintegrate that which I have pushed away from me and projected onto money, and reintegrate that into my sense of self, and realize I too am all of these things. And if I am these things consciously, then I have freedom to move in the world. And at the same time, I've also maybe projected positive things outside of myself, like freedom, well-being, luxury, creativity, whatever I connect with money that might be positive. And then to see how can I separate that from the outside and reintegrate it into the inside, that again, then I have a process in which I can be whole, where I can have access to that within me and be free in my relationship to money. And then money is just something that is out there like any other thing in the world. And the process of reclaiming the projection is to make it about me again, to have it be relocated in my sense of self. So any statement that I might have about money, money is dirty, to then actually say, well, what if I say I'm dirty? And then to fall in love with it, as Peter said, and said, I'm dirty and that's great. And to play with that, right? And of course we realize that's it's a complex piece of work. And that's why we're ultimately looking at 11 weeks, because I realize I at least can't do this in 2 hours, but we wanted to give you a bit of a taste of it. So I think we have time for maybe a couple more questions. I'm going to ask India to ask your question.
Oh, hi, thank you. Oops, I can get me back on too. Hi, thanks so much. Wow, this is fantastic. I had a question that surfaced out of our group chat and around the current system and leadership.
Your sound isn't there.
Can you not hear my sound at all, or?
No, I think Nadia had a problem. I was able to hear it. Nadia, can you unmute yourself again?
Ah, weird. Okay, strange. Now I can hear you too, India. Yep. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Around this system, which some could describe as the financial system, which some could describe as more masculine oriented, and where there's this shift towards integrating a more feminine element. And if we were to remove the words of masculine and feminine, perhaps a more balanced element. And it's this integration, if we're shifting towards a positive way of integrating money and the way that you're talking about and shifting the system, do you feel like that those attributes and that overall, that might be a solution on a global level in terms of systemic, in terms of how we're weighing up money in that conversation?
Well, the expert on that subject has unfortunately passed away last year. He's was a central banker in Belgium by the name of Bernard Lietaer, and wrote a couple of books. And he considered that the present money system, the conventional money system, is what he called a masculine system. And he was a great advocate of the complementary currencies, which some of you may know of or be quite informed about. Alternative, let's call them alternative community currencies, local and regional currencies. And actually we see these being created in all sorts of different ways right now, including, I would say, cryptocurrencies. So, so you could say that this is sort of happening right now, but I would still take it back to to our individual relationships and what we really mean by masculine and feminine. And I think it needs far deeper work if we want to collectively integrate the feminine into the world. I'm going to say something controversial now because I've been researching this with some of my masterclasses. The first step individually for both women and men is actually to reclaim the masculine. And I'll leave it at that controversial statement. But I can just explain a little bit. In order for femininity, in my view, to feel safe enough to come out and blossom, it needs to be well protected. And that means also for women that you need to actually reclaim your masculine side first so that you can really blossom with your femininity. And this I don't think is yet fully understood. So I leave it at that. But that, in my view, is the key to actually have us become more feminine collectively, which I fully support.
Thank you, Peter. And I'm sure it's not fully understood yet either, and that's okay. It's a process. So I want to give the last question to Rike, and then I think we will wrap this call up for today. Rike, can you unmute yourself?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm actually really, I'm stuck with the gender debate that was just, that you just started, Peter. And actually that was not my question, but I feel like I need to also talk about the idea of feminine and masculine energies, and all of that idea is like a very complex and complicated one, but also careful with it. Like I'm very careful with that understanding of, or maybe would argue with you that the feminine energy is not necessarily one that you have to kind of put in a little vase and be careful that she comes out. And there's a lot of thinkers like Mary Beard, for example, talking that it's actually a problem when you think of the masculine as the way to go, because look at where it took us in a way, you know. And yes, also the idea of what is power, and the idea of maybe disconnecting the idea of masculinity and power, and also what is female power, what could that look like. But this is not what I actually wanted to ask. Thank you so much for all of this. My question is actually coming from a different place, and I think Fox was saying something about it in the chat as well, about the privilege of being white. And also personally, from what I understand of your work, and I just get to know it today, thank you so much for this, it's identity work and it's individual work. And I'm with you on that. The only question or problem that I have is, we also talked a little bit about the systemic way, and talking from a global perspective, and then connecting these two thoughts of privilege. I see, also being a studied psychologist, I see a danger in putting the responsibility on people who are actually very much within the treadmill of suffering injustice through a systemic way. And I feel like I understand that you're coming from a personal identity work, but where do you connect the systemic change, or the global responsibility of changing? For example, I mean, we all saw it in the pandemic, injustices happening all around the world, with LGBTQI issues, with Black Lives Matter things, where it's actual real injustice happening around the world. And I think that, from what I understood, it's dangerous to put it oh, you just have to do the work, you know what I mean, personally and individually, because a lot of us, and I'm included in that somehow, it's not that easy. And of course you said it's not easy, but how do you connect the systemic change and the personal responsibility, if you know what I mean? It's a very broad question, I'm aware of that, sorry.
This is a very sensitive issue, Rike.
Yeah.
It's a very sensitive issue. I'm fortunate to have the privilege over the years to have had in my work, usually in groups, people who've been working in underprivileged situations with underprivileged people in many different countries.
Mm.
And I haven't been there myself, but I've met these people, and it's very interesting how they respond to a question like yours. Because how they respond is that you just don't understand. In other words, if you haven't been exposed to real people who are underprivileged, and maybe you have, but if you haven't been exposed, then you kind of have a distant view, which is just like a mental view. So in the case of money, it's like there are people saying, well, you know, there are all those poor people in Africa, and look at what our system is doing to all those poor people in Africa. And I remember somebody who'd been working with these poor people in Africa who was furious with the person who was talking, who had no clue and no experience of this at all, and said, look, if you got to meet these people in Africa and they heard you talk, their answer would be, if we had what you have as privileged people, we wouldn't be looking at us like this. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, yes, but with that, I know what you're saying, and obviously I'm also I'm very white. I'm also very privileged. I grew up in Germany. I come from a rather solid background. I was actually able to fulfill my life dream of becoming an artist. You know, I consider myself very privileged on a high level, but still, I think, although I will never say I understand or I know what it's like, because I don't. I really don't. But I can still, because I have the privilege, I would like to use that privilege. And I mean, this is like all over the planet, this is what people are talking about. And I think it's a chance right now, this whole idea of facing white supremacy and changing all of that ideas, and also stepping back and all of that, you know. I know that, you know.
So go to Black Africa and meet these people.
You don't have to go to Black Africa to meet Black people.
No, not to meet Black people, but to meet the underprivileged that you're trying to help.
But Rike actually has. I happen to know that she has been to Black Africa. But listen, because I think, you know, this could, you know, easily lead into another hour of discussion, right? And so, you know, as the moderator of this call, let me sort of take charge here and say, this opens a big can of worms, obviously, because it, you know, it keeps coming back to that question of what is individual responsibility and what is the collective, right? And I think both of them are important. The one thing that I always come back to, and in my capacity as a psychologist, is to say, listen, systems are designed by people, right? They're not God-made. So that means the more conscious the people who are actually running the system are, the better it will be for bigger and bigger collectives. So therefore, I actually see it as part of my white privilege and my responsibility to become as conscious as I can possibly become, because from that level of awareness, I can help to design systems that are much more inclusive and that create more possibility for more people, right? And that for me is the link.
Of course, yeah, that for me is also the link, but I was just curious of like where Peter would set the link.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, of course, I agree with Nadia, and I would still say, I would still claim what I was saying before, that it's actually the view of the privileged under the underprivileged, which is part of the problem.
I don't think that I did that. Maybe I did. Maybe I'm not fully aware, but I really just wanted to raise the question.
Okay. Well, I apologize if I misplaced that.
Yeah. Well, as we can see, I think there are more conversations, deeper conversations to be had. And, you know, if you should happen to come along on this journey, so for one, we can, of course, also explore some of that in the body in the session next week with Rivka and see where we end up there. And then if you want to take it even deeper, then join us on the 11-week tour, is all I can say. So thank you very much, Peter. Foremost, of course, you for
Great pleasure.
the deep insights into your work. As much as I know that you've utterly confused some people on the call now, and that's amazing. That's all part of the process. And thank you, Rivka, for giving us a tiny little glimpse into what is to come. I'm looking forward to the session with you next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Central European Time. And thank you everybody for making the time to be here, for sticking it out as long as you have. And yeah, if you just want to say one takeaway from the call today and post it into the chat, that would be amazing. And otherwise, be well and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Nadia. Thank you, everybody.
Why don't you unmute
Lots of
yourselves
love.
to say goodbye?
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Peter.
Thank you.
Bye, Bye, Nadia.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So much. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone.
Bye, Samia.
Yeah, I'm just making a private statistic how Zoom calls ends.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
with interesting people who stays at the end. But anyway, thanks a lot, Nadjeschda.
Thank you, Samia. Bye.